Thank you, everyone, for having us on. I know I've spoken to Olivia as well as Liz on just having a panel specifically for athletes that are looking for careers post-college, right? And so one of the biggest things for me is making sure that we can get a collective list of minds of individuals that's going through different experiences. So I actually attended Stetson, played on the basketball team from 2000 to 2004. My major at the time was computer information systems. Now, during the time of me choosing a major, that kind of changed to electronic business technology because I really wanted to understand how business segues over into technology. Today, which actually works really well with my current job, I'm the national sales director for a really small company called Abbott. We have 120,000 employees worldwide in over 60 different countries. You would think of Abbott today when you think of the new COVID testing. And in fact, just today it was released that we have one of the newest FDA approved 15-minute testing availabilities for a chip. So one of the biggest things that we're doing is creating new innovations across the board. So what my team specifically does and what I do is identify methods in which we are working new in the markets. My biggest thing is that there's a lot of individuals across the country that don't have adequate access to healthcare. And so my thing is, how do we get in touch with those individuals? And I think COVID has forced us to learn virtually. And so we're doing things virtually. So I'm working with a lot of different groups on remote monitoring through wearables such as your app, your phone, or your watch. And we're identifying where patients may need additional assistance and help. I have my master's in healthcare management, and I think tied along with my understanding of technology really has allowed me to do well in this space. If I can think about sports in general, how sports has really helped me in my, search for a career. Because quite honestly, when I got out of college, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do. I just know I needed a job, right? I didn't want to go back home and stay with my parents, so I needed to figure out a job. I went through 40 different interviews before I got an opportunity for my first job. And so when I think about sports, what has sports done? Sports allowed me to continue to push through some of those adversities. And I look at it in three different ways, right? We look at sports in strategy, preparation, and then also in execution. So when I think about strategy in sports, we think of strategy as somewhat a game plan. When I think of preparation, it's practice. Practice makes perfect. Also, practice is also you holding yourself accountable and being open to coaching. The last part of execution is being able to know what the preparation and the game plan is for you to execute in your number one job, or if you're looking to expand in your career, being able to execute in that. And so for me, it's being able to have these ongoing discussions, especially for those that I know that are going through a hard time, especially as athletes in college. You don't necessarily get all the internships that you may want to because you're playing a different sport. So that limits you in the opportunity to get that experience, right? So it's almost necessary that we have these discussions so that everyone understands maybe what certain athletes have to go through in order for them to get a job post-athletics.
Thank you, Joe. That was awesome. I'm going to pass it over to Sherrel now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone, for having me. It is such a pleasure to be introduced to my first Stetson event. This is really exciting. And so just a little bit about me. I actually graduated from Stetson in 2007. I played softball with Coach Griffin and Coach V. Hi, Jamie. He's on the phone. His wife was our coach, so I got to give her some love. I love Coach V. And it was a wonderful experience for me. I majored in marketing, so I got my undergrad in marketing. I ultimately went and got my master's in integrated marketing communications from West Virginia University. So again, giving me that next level of marketing strategy, execution knowledge. And then from there, really just went into the workforce and spent, now it's 12 years under my belt in corporate marketing. However, in terms of my role and my job, so I am the CEO and founder founder of a health and wellness brand called Canvy, and we develop scalp health and body solutions. And so we've been in business for about 5 years now. What's great about us is that we literally started in farmers markets, and today we have distribution in Target stores. We have a great partnership with Moffitt Cancer Center. We also have partnerships with Tampa International Airport and USF Health. And it's not public knowledge yet, but we're getting ready to launch in a couple more retailers next year. So just very, very exciting times. I think one of the top attributes or skill sets that I've learned from being an athlete is just having work ethic, right? That's one of my attributes that I value, and I think really sets me apart from other entrepreneurs, right? Because everyone talks about the idea, everyone talks about the product and wanting to have that business. But the question is, are you willing to put in the work, right? Are you willing to go over and beyond, right? I think you have to create a healthy balance, but I think for me, that's what sets it over the top. And that's one thing I learned from being an athlete, that you have to put in the work, you have to grind. To your point, Joe, you have to execute, and more importantly, you have to put together a strategy and a plan to succeed. And so that's definitely a skill set that I've learned. So thank you.
Awesome. And Max, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be a part of this first virtual event at Stetson. So pretty cool. I graduated from Stetson in 2012. I was on the tennis team for 4 years, actually under I guess the coaching of Pierre Pilote and Christophe Noblet, who is also part of this call. So I feel extra pressure of having to execute here. No, really, it's been the best years. I still think the best years of my life. 4 years at Stetson. I'm originally from Eastern Europe, from Belarus. Arriving to Orlando International Airport a week prior to my freshman semester starting was the first time I've ever stepped on American. It was a pretty exciting, but also nerve-wracking moment. But really that was just the beginning of a great journey that I'm very, very thankful for. So I studied international business, and later on in my college years, I decided to get a second major in finance, and I'm glad I did that. I actually ended up getting a job with the local community bank right out of college, and I'm still in banking. At this time, I am with Center State Bank. That is a regional bank in southeast market. I'm a commercial relationship manager. So I work with clients of different size, anywhere from $50,000 in annual revenue to anywhere to 15, 20, 50, 30 million dollars. So really different size of companies, and I enjoy it very much. I get to work with the business owners on a personal level. I get to see them achieve their financial and life goals, and I get to play a part in that journey and be the trusted advisor for them, which is the part that I enjoy the most. Reflecting back on the years at Stetson, really. I could not agree more with Joe and Sherrel on everything they've mentioned. Really, practice planning, practice execution, the applying yourself and really wanting to get those results. I could not agree more on that. For me, something else that I've always experienced that helped me was being open to really any outcome. We don't know what tomorrow will look like. A lot of times, for me, was coming from Europe to the United States and not knowing what to expect. That was a shock. And anyway, all along the way in my career, there were many shocks coming my way, and staying flexible and staying open-minded and being open to new ideas and to be flexible myself and adjust patient, and my execution has been the key for me. So Stetson and tennis they prepared me for it. You know, sports in general, you don't know what to expect from your opponent and you know, from your team as well. So so yeah, that's been one of the skills that really really, you know, I continue to work on it. You can't get perfect at it, but that's something that that I'm thankful I was taught and I was prepared for. So excited to be a part of this. Thanks for having me again, and look forward to a nice, great discussion.
Yes, thank you guys so much. So moving forward, everybody either turn off your mic, you know, bounce around, say I have a question, or you can drop it in the chat box. But we're ready for any questions that come. Joe, I do have one thing for you really quick.
Okay.
You have a really cool story about how you got your first job, and I want you to share it.
Okay. Yeah, so this is so it's so funny because we were having a discussion following, I think, one of the last meetings that I had, and we were talking about like why this is so important. And I can remember graduating from college from Stetson, and I had an opportunity to play basketball overseas, and things didn't work out. And I said, you know what, it's time for me to look for a job. And for some reason, and this kind of goes back to my 40 interviews, for some reason, I couldn't get a job because I didn't have enough experience, right? And I felt as if I was hitting a wall. And this kind of goes back to athletics. So being from Gainesville, where University of Florida is, I have a lot of friends, family that, you know, live in the area, as well as a lot of friends that attended University of Florida. So during University of Florida's career fair, I decided that, you know what, this may be my opportunity to get in front of additional people. So I asked one of my best friends who was attending University of Florida at the time, and I took his college ID and went into the career fair. So lo and behold, as you can imagine, while other companies are reading resumes that says University of Florida, there was no University of Florida around anything on my resume. So then the whole question becomes, well, what did you do in order to get in the career fair? Who did you know? What made you even think outside the box to do this? And I think one of those things that happened is following that career fair, I had numerous job offers, obviously, because they saw that I was willing to go beyond what was expected. But it kind of goes to that point. When you think you're hitting a roadblock because you play sports, it always goes to being down. And I look at it at this point. It was the fourth quarter. We were down. It's time for me to think outside the box in order for me to execute and do really well, right? I think it also goes back to what Sherrel said is when you're an athlete, you're used to working hard. I remember those mornings where we would have personal training at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I would go to class and come back and have an individual workout, and then we'd have a team workout. So you're used to wearing multiple hats and working really hard. And I think hard work, along with, you know, you just being a genuine person, will usually work out for your benefit. And through that experience, I've always known to never just look at everything as the status quo. Even in my current job that I'm in now, I've always done things outside the box. So I would say do things that are non-traditional. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. And kind of going back to what Sherrel said, working hard as an athlete, you get that response back.
I love that story.
I was like, you have to share this story. Not only the 40 applications, that's a cool little tidbit, but I'm like, this is great. So.
And from the career perspective, I'm just like, man, like what a big difference, like going to that size of a career fair and getting in. And due to COVID, I was going to say, you know, it's changed our expo a little bit, but in the normal time, Stetson students now can go to 12 other institutions' expos, their career fairs. So that's not happening due to COVID since we're all virtually, but hopefully in the future, you can take Joe's advice and go to another school's expo. And, you know, maybe you don't even need somebody else's ID, but love the story, and that is exactly what employers want to hear, is someone that's going to go above and beyond to come meet them, especially in person. So love it.
That's awesome.
That's so funny. Yeah, and I listened to it. So I went to UF for my undergrad, and I hear that, I'm like, whoa, wait, what's this guy doing in our career fair?
Yeah, there was a lot. Let me just say, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of questions on how did I get past security, you know. So that part was really cool. But I mean, it really goes back to that, right? A lot of athletes that are playing sports, they don't get the opportunity to have internships, right? So I think that minimizes your opportunity sometimes, not all the time. Things have changed a lot too since 2004. So let me just make that clear. But I think that also, you know, is where those times where we have to think outside the box. And now employers are looking for that. There are virtual conferences that I'm currently attending to look for really diverse talent. And I mean diverse in minds, experience, diverse in nature, where I'm looking for different, hiring the traditional person that I see too. So I think that's also to keep those things in mind, that saying I don't have experience, but I'm willing to work for whatever to get that experience, and I'm very coachable. Those things go a really long way.
Awesome. Now that we have all that fun story in our back pocket, I'm going to have everybody answer this question. Max, we'll start with you. How do you think being a student athlete influenced your life after graduation? So once you stepped into the workforce, or just no longer being a student athlete, no longer having practice every day, how did you transition into that life?
Well, let me start by saying I gained some weight, so that was not a bad thing, right? I mean, you're used to practicing every day, twice a day, and you know then you sit in the office, and so that was a change. But no, seriously, you know, sports gave me, tennis gave me everything. Really, it gave me a perspective. You know, it gave me a skill how to work on a team together. It's not what you can do, it's what your team can do. And a lot of times you're not the smartest, you're not the best in the room, but there is something that you can do that helps your team, that you know you all get rewarded at the end. So so really just taking that team member mentality, hard work. There's always, if you want something bad enough, if there is a will, there is a way. If you want something bad enough and you're willing to put the work in, and you know, stay late, come early, take extra projects, you know, do the extra curriculum stuff. It doesn't, any way you can differentiate yourself from others, it pays off a lot. So yeah, just a combination of all those things. And you know, in sports, you're hopefully never happy with yourself. Hopefully you're always trying to do better, trying to become better version of yourself, for your interest or for your team, you know, whoever wants that result from you. So same thing in the career. You know, you can sit in the office, you know, 8 to 5, clock in, clock out, and you know, be done with it, and be like, unfortunately, maybe the majority of the workforce out there. But you can take that few steps, and think of outside the box. You can take it further. You can do a little more. And the great thing about this country, about this economy, hard work does pay off, and you know, efforts do get noticed. So from that standpoint, you know, it's all in our own hands.
Well, thank you for that. And same question for you, Sherrel.
Yeah, so I think what helped me assimilate into the workplace after college, and what sports taught me, was I had an appreciation for the differences in people, right? And so when we join a new workforce, there's a lot of different people, or not. It may be a small company and people that are different from you. And so I'm just gonna be honest, like I was always like the Black girl on the softball team, right? And so what it did, you know, is it gave me an appreciation to get to know others that were different from me and find those positives, right? Or find those affinities that we both liked or appreciated, right? To develop that relationship. And so because I was always sort of in that environment, where like my first year in college, I had a roommate. She was originally from Texas and never met a Black person in her life, right? And so that was different for her. And so I had to say, hey, we're alike. We are human. And while that might have been a little bit uncomfortable, right, we found things that we both like. So I think that's one of the strongest attributes that being on a softball team taught me is you kind of go with the flow, right? Like you learn people, not that you accept anything, but you learn how to go with the flow of the culture, right, of the team or the company. And so I think that's a strength that I have. No matter what room I'm in, no matter what group of people that I'm around, I know how to communicate and I know how to find, again, that affinity when speaking to a stranger. And again, I think that came directly from being on a softball team since the age of 9, right? And knowing how to appreciate others. So I think that was the #1 attribute that helped me really develop and grow my career throughout the years.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Joe, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 things. So my last 2 years at Stetson, I was the captain of the basketball team. And I think that gave me a number of experiences because what I did is I learned how to lead by example, but then also I learned how to lead while depending on my teammates around me. And so I do the same thing today, right? I think I hold myself accountable to certain standards that I have for my team. I also have check-in points with everyone around me to check myself, right? Alongside of having that team, you have difference in opinions that actually matter. And I think when you have those difference of opinions, you get to a really sweet spot of understanding how your team can really gel together. And so I look at the same thing in business. I'm working with multiple individuals across the country as well as globally from different divisions within my organization. There's going to be some individuals that you speak to that have somewhat of an ego. You have to have the emotional intelligence. And I think working with the team, working through sports has helped me with that emotional intelligence. That has helped me understand not only how to work within the team, but to understand what people are saying without them actually speaking, right? There's a lot of nonverbal cues that are important in leadership, as well as when you're working within, a collective group of individuals. So I think for me, it's worked really well, just understanding how to have that emotional intelligence, know what it is, hold myself accountable to certain standards that I have for myself, as well as my team. But I'm also willing to learn from those that are around me as well. I never think that I'm better than someone else. And I think that kind of goes back to Max's point. When you're playing sports, you're always thinking, how can I get better? No matter what level you're at, I can always learn from someone, whether they're someone that reports to me or even someone that I'm reporting to. I never look at someone as someone that I can never learn from. So I think sports has really helped with that. That emotional intelligence is really important, especially in the working world, especially in the world that we're living in today, to just really understand some of those nonverbal cues. It will take you a long way.
Those are some really great points. I love the whole leading, up and down the chain. That's, listening to everybody on your team. And I think that's a really great point. Sherrel, I've got a question for you. So you went into grad school after college, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you talk about just being a normal student?
Good point.
What does that mean, being a normal student? Just like how tough it is to be in grad school and have a career at the same time?
Okay.
Yeah, so
yes,
yeah, so I think for me, and probably JJ and Carrie can attest to this. I've always been extremely focused, and I always had a goal in mind. And so for me, my ultimate goal in life, it just in terms of my career, was to be a brand manager. And so ultimately, when I got my degree from West Virginia University, or during that process, it was like, hey, how can I go work at Procter & Gamble or L'Oreal or Estee Lauder, right? And so I was on a mission. I was on a mission of, how do brand managers currently think? What are they thinking about, to Joe's point, globally? What are the leadership skills I need to obtain? What types of things do I need to take in terms to build an omni-channel strategy, right? So there were a lot of different aspects that I knew I needed to learn to take me to the next level. So for me, I think the benefit was I was currently working. And so I had a different perspective on, assignments and things of that nature. I think that's always a benefit. But for me, I was always really determined and really focused to learn everything I possibly could. So, because the number one thing, I want people to say when they work with me is, she's sharp, right? Like, she knows what she's doing. She has that intellectual capability to deliver, right? She knows how to communicate, and she understands. She has that expertise to deliver. And so for me, I have a totally different lens as I think about school and I think about education. I'm originally from Nassau, Bahamas. So I have a different appreciation for education, right? Even when I was in college, they were like, girl, why aren't you going out with us? Why aren't you coming to party? I was always in the library. It's because I knew, right, in order to achieve great things, in order to develop myself, I had to have a strong and solid education. And so for me, I take it a little different. I have a little different lens because I come from another country. So for me, I just really focused and worked really hard.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself here. Sorry. I really like this question, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to being a student athlete, but just now a working professional. What's the best piece of professional advice you've been told? Joe, I'll hand that to you.
All right. So the biggest advice for me is really taking ownership of your own career. All right. I can say within the first 3 to 4 years, I was afraid to ask for a mentor and gain a sponsor. So there's two different ways I look at this, right? When you're going through your career aspirations, it's great to have a mentor within your current organization. It's also great to have 1 to 2 mentors outside of your organization. The reason why it's good to have mentors outside of your organization is because they don't really know the culture, and they're going to have a different lens or a perspective that maybe you are not aware of, right? Someone within your organization is because they do understand the culture. They do understand maybe some of the steps, or maybe steps that you don't have to take in order for you to get certain places in your career. So that's great to have a mentor. A sponsor is someone that can really speak for you in times when you can't speak for yourself, when there's other opportunities that are going to be on the horizon. Meaning there's going to be a new job that's going to be posted. There's going to be new opportunities for different projects. So it's good to have a sponsor. You don't want to necessarily ask for a sponsor, but the way you become really good and someone becomes your sponsor is you gain their respect. And you gain their respect by doing things outside the box, showing them different projects that's going to help. And you're doing this proactively, right? Not reactively. Now there's a job posting. Now you're deciding to talk to this individual. It always has to be proactively. And I think those things will help in your career aspirations on what you're trying to do. So that mentor and sponsor can help to lead you in different places where you want to go now that you're in your career. Also know your career may not go in the way that you think it's going to go. That's okay, right? I would never put a timeline on when you're supposed to hit this mark, when you're supposed to hit that mark, because you actually may limit yourself, right? I've seen individuals say, well, it's going to take you 6 years to get to this place in your career, and people stick to that, right? I've always thought of, well, if I'm very competent and I have the confidence, why can't I be there? Those things are important. So taking ownership of your career, asking for a mentor, getting respect for individuals that are maybe in an executive role, for a sponsor, those things help for your overall career development.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
So I have I don't know, a slightly different perspective, and I want to say kind of controversial. And the reason I say that is because all of us here, right, we're student athletes, or we're very familiar with the space, right? And so going into the career, whatever your career is, right, the workforce, you think that your hard work is always going to yield a result, right? Or you think your hard work is always going to yield a promotion. But that's not the case, right? And so in my 12 to 13 years, the best advice, and there's two I want to share. So the best advice I ever received, right, in corporate marketing is to know how to play the game. And people who have been in the workforce for a while will know it's not always how hard you work, it's how well you can play the game. And that's kind of controversial because people think, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work hard and they're gonna see me, and that's not true. That's not the case. And so I experienced that firsthand, right? And so as a marketing director, I worked really hard. I put in lots of hours. I presented lots of strategies, right? And there was this VP of marketing that she wasn't really feeling me. She just wasn't really liking me, right? For whatever reason. And I was kind of frustrated, like, wow, I'm not getting acknowledged, or I'm not getting the recognition, or I feel as if I'm putting the same amount of work on, I'm giving that expertise that should be valued as a director, or I was a manager at the time. And a guy told me, he said, hey, it doesn't really matter. You got to learn how to play the game. And I was like, no, I'm not going to suck up. I'm not going to kiss butt. I'm not doing that. He's like, you're not listening. You have to learn how to navigate this. And when I started paying attention, and when I really tuned into that, that's when I got promoted. And that's when I learned how to build champions within. And so it's hard to, if you haven't been in the workforce, it's hard to really know what that looks like. But I'm telling you, that was the best advice that I really got. And the second thing, as a woman, right, on this panel is, I really built up the strength to ask for what I wanted. So for example, I managed a team of 2, right? And then they came and said, hey, we're gonna add 10 more people to your team. And I'm like, that's great, okay. And they're like, we're gonna pay you X. And I'm like, whoa, no, why? And so I challenged that and say, hey, I want, instead of a 10% increase, I actually want a 25% increase. And they thought I was, they didn't think I was nuts or crazy, but they were like, well, why should we pay you 25? And I was like, one, if you did this externally, right, you're going to pay someone my salary plus their salary. So you could at least give me, less than half of theirs. And the second thing is, if this is a team that no one wants, and I have to come in and I have to build it up and I have to turn around the team, then give me the money that I'm worth to go and fix this team and streamline this team. And so they challenged me and they came back and forth. I said, listen, I'm not interested. And I declined the position. And then they went back to the CEO and they offered me what I wanted. And so my point in saying that is, if you really want something, it doesn't matter how big or small, you go ask for it, right? Because it won't always be given to you if you work hard. So those are 2 pieces of advice I would share for everyone.
Can I just piggyback on what Sherrel is saying? Because I love that. And it kind of goes back in hand what I was saying about having a mentor. If you have the right mentor that works within your organization, they can help you navigate your timeline. And it's absolutely the part, and it's not necessarily a controversial thing. I think it's just the facts. You got to know how to navigate and play those games within the organization. So you are absolutely right. Love that story.
Thank you.
No, that's great, guys. And honestly, I'm glad I'm going third, because I can use all of your base. And I mean, you're talking about the right things, and the a little bit different spin on the same point. But I was once told that the name of the game is to build your personal board of directors at a company. So any organization you're a part of, build that internal network of mentors, right, or people who can get you through through the weeds of the corporate America, who can help you get the projects done, who can get you to a yes. And again, you can't achieve everything by playing by yourself. You have to work as a team. So it's give and take. You have to help those people, to feel valuable and feel like they're getting something from you. And it's, you're running your own little company, your own little, board of directors. And if they see the value in you, they'll help you get through what you're trying to get. And also, one other advice, I guess, that kind of stuck with me is don't be afraid to make decisions. Right? There are a lot of people out there that they will crunch the numbers, they will analyze, research. They spend a lot of time, a lot of effort on that, but they cannot make that statement at the end, right? And I guess in college, we're learning how to make that thesis statement and how to present our ideas the best way, and how to sell the idea. Sometimes you just do it. Just do it. If you trust the process and you feel like your boss trusts you enough, sometimes of course it depends on a boss, right? Sometimes the boss tells you don't make decisions, and there's probably a reason for that. So you need to find out why they don't want you to make decisions. But a lot of times that's the only way you learn. So by making decisions, making mistakes, learning from them, analyzing why it didn't work, and improving the process to make better decisions down the road. So, but no, I mean, all the great points, and I mean, that's play the game is unfortunately it's something that you find out. Nobody talks about it, but you find out, and you kind of keep it to yourself, because you start bringing it up and saying why you went to lunch with so and so because you were playing the game, and then all of a sudden people are questioning your integrity. But no, that's part of that's the only way to get through the corporate America these days. But everyone does it differently, so there's no right or wrong, there's no one way. It's got to figure out your own way.
I want to go back really quick to the creating your own board of directors. How do you go about picking, and do you tell them? Do you say, I want you to be part of my little board? Or like, what's that conversation like? How do you decide all of that stuff?
Yeah, great question. I don't think you have to necessarily tell them they're part of your board. These could be people who don't communicate between each other. I mean, this could be people in different areas of the company. Sometimes, I mean, in my particular scenario, right, at the bank, I have my own loan authority, right? I can give loans to businesses, up to a certain size. But again, if I know I cannot go above certain limit, well, I need to make sure that I have that one person who's going to give me the approval. And if it's more than, if it's above that limit, then I need two people. And but at the same time, to get me to that, I need an analyst who's looking at those numbers and crunching them on the front end. If I don't get the analyst to do his work, then I can't get to the next level. So you're creating those relationships, and you're making people feel valuable. And I think to me, anybody who you show that you're interested in learning, that you're interested in listening to them and implementing some of their ideas in return for them helping you out. Of course, if it's if it makes sense, I mean, you have to make sure you're writing for the right things, you're asking for the right things. But not necessarily. They don't need to know they're part of your board. They could be completely independent, not talking to each other, but they help you get stuff done and push projects through the system.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So in the chat box, we have had a couple questions. So Liz, always great with all the questions. She's in the chat box asking, how do you talk about your student athlete experience? Maybe it's on a resume, during your interviews, and is there a specific way that you always mention to communicate your value?
So I'll share that my sort of softball story, and it's really true. So, you know, to Joe's point, right? So when you start your career and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no experience, but I'm going to try and go in here and kill this interview. I always use my softball experience, and I always went in and said, hey, and I definitely advise anyone to do this if you have a personal story that's true, right? It's, you know, my freshman year of college, I came in and I had to learn how to hit from the left side. And so I had the lowest batting average on the entire team. Like I needed to sit down somewhere. And truthfully, again, having that Bahamian background, like, listen, I need to have my education. I need my education paid for. So ultimately, I need to have this scholarship. So I worked my tail off all summer long. And just I worked every day, all day. And basically by my sophomore year, I was an All-American, right? As a slapper. And so during my interviews, I give that example. I say, hey, you know, starting out, I may not know everything. I may not be able to answer every question, but what I am going to tell you, I'm going to work harder than anyone here. I am going to stumble sometimes. I need you to have my back. But at the end of the day, I promise you, once I figure this out, I'm going to be your winner, and I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to give you work ethic better than anyone else. And so that's always my example that I share, because it is true and it's real. And at the end of the day, the employers are like, okay, all right, let's do this.
I love that. Does anybody else want to share, Joe?
Yeah, so, and I can think of my experience. So my first job was working with Wells Fargo as an analyst. And I can remember when I can remember this date very clearly. And I remember having to drive. So listen to this, I had a 1990 Chevy Silverado with no AC, living in Florida. So it was extremely hot during the middle of summer, and I would have to drive to Ocala, Florida to work to a Wells Fargo branch, right? And I think I was after a year, and I was doing extremely well, and they were asking me, hey, do you want to get your own store and have your own like analyst team? And I went to thinking to myself, you know, I don't know if this is something I really have a passion for. So this is kind of going back to basketball. I love basketball. I love all sports in general. I played 4 different sports, but basketball was something I've loved since I was a kid. And I thought, if I ever want to get into a job or a career and never feel like I'm working a day, I need to have some form of passion for it. I think I was working for Wells Fargo just because I was good with numbers, right? So being an analyst kind of was a natural fit, but I really wanted to get into a passion. I love still working out today. And I wanted to be somewhat in the health community. So that's what kind of drove me to the pharmaceutical division. Right now I work in the nutrition division within Abbott. And I think going through that experience and having an interview, I said, you know what? I think this is a leap of faith that I want to take. This also goes back to athletics, being okay taking risk, right? Being okay taking the big shot, right? Knowing that I may miss the shot, but someone has to take the shot. So I remember being at my desk. It was around 4 o'clock in the middle of summer. And I remember I had to go down to my car to drive in the middle of the heat with no AC. And I said, you know what? I think today's the day I'm going to take a leap of faith. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to really go full speed on the career that I really want to have. I deserve to have this career. I'm really good at this right now. I'm going to put the hard work behind it. And I'm going to go and pursue this job in the healthcare field. And within 3 weeks of me trying, I got a job. So kind of goes back on the form of, do you really have what it takes? When you play athletics, you do. You have that grit. You're okay coaching yourself. You're okay keeping yourself accountable. I think the hard work that you put in and the risk taking, let it be calculated risk, but the risk that you take, you know, you should never doubt yourself, especially if you know you're going to be able to put the hard work in to get in. And then once, like Sherrel says, once you get in, you got to know how to play the game.
Yeah, so I'll just tell, I guess my story. The biggest thing for me, and that's what I told recruiters right after Stetson, or while I was at Stetson, that tennis is not a team sport, right? Tennis is unless you're playing doubles, and again, doubles is something you don't play as a junior. You're playing singles. That's your primary focus. So coming to United States, team sports, wasn't a thing for me. I wasn't truly a team player in terms of, I had that quality in me. I guess I was open to it. And later on, I realized that that's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And that's what I love to do. But transitioning from being a single player to becoming a team player, and you're not even a doubles player. I mean, you're just one of 6 on the team at that time, and I know with other sports, it's even more players. So you're just, but understanding what part of that team what benefit you can bring to the team, what advantage you can bring to the team, and where is the right time to step up and where is the right time to step down, and tell the coach, hey, today is not the day, put the next guy in. I want the team to win. It's not about me playing today. I'm gonna make the right decision to get ourselves the best chance to win in winning. And that was the transition that I had to make. That wasn't comfortable. I still wanted to be the singles player. I still wanted to get all the recognition, but I quickly realized that's it. That's not gonna work. And later in the college career, in the junior year, I was playing number 1 at the time on the singles lineup, and I had an injury, so I had to step down and let the guys fill in the spots, and it didn't feel good inside. I wanted to be out there, I wanted to contribute to the team, but I knew that even if I wasn't 100%, I just had to make that decision. It's not, if I cannot contribute 100%, then let somebody else have the chance. And at the same time, that gave me motivation to recover faster, to get better, and to jump right back into the game. So yeah, that was kind of an uncomfortable moment, on top of many others uncomfortable moments that you get into, being an athlete and being international student athlete. There are many moments, but that kind of resonated the most. And I was telling recruiters that story, and they seem to like it. And in today's world, teamwork is everything.
I really like that. That's all great, different perspectives coming from everybody. So I really appreciate that. We've got another question in the chat box. The hiring process. So when your companies are hiring now, how do you look at student athletes? Yeah, all that good stuff. If anybody works closely with your recruiting team, feel free to pipe up. I know, Sherrel, you have your own business.
Yes. So I definitely think it's a benefit. I'm kind of biased, right? It's so bad. Like when I'm interviewing someone, I'm like, oh, you played on a team. What was your batting average? Or what was, how many points did you score? At first, I don't start off like that. But then once I see that, of course, I kind of get out of character, and we start having, some fun dialogue. But I think having a student athlete represented on your resume definitely gives you a different edge. So I would recommend any and everyone to make sure include that. And then more importantly, I think during the interview process, I'm asking what attributes are you going to bring better than any other candidate, right? In addition to that, I'm also looking for, to all of your point, Joe's, are you going to think outside the box? Are you going to be a team player, such as what Max talked about? Are you going to make sure that you're going to add value, and your human capital is going to help us go over and beyond to reach our goals? And so I definitely think it's advantageous to share that, include that on your resume. And if anything, I think it's a benefit, and I think it's a great connection point, because even if you're speaking to a potential employer and they do not play sports, I have not played sports, one thing they will say, you always can throw, oh, what's your favorite mascot? What's your favorite team, right? And that's always a way to use to kind of connect in during that process and during that meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. We've got 5 more minutes left. So I have a wrap-up question that I like to end all panels with. If you could go back in time to your undergraduate career while you were a student athlete, what is one thing you would change?
I'll let y'all go first.
That's a good question. Look at
Just mull it over a little bit.
man.
I'll go.
Max,
I'll go.
if you're
Yeah,
ready,
I'll go. So looking back, right, and I think as I was growing up, as I came to the United States, I was always an introvert, right? You couldn't get many words out of me. I wasn't the center of attention. And I liked that. I liked working hard, being in my corner, doing my thing. Don't touch me. I'll get the work done. And let's give me an opportunity to show you the result. And that prevented me, I think, from stepping up and taking on a leadership role on the team. So although I was given an opportunity to lead the team from the lineup position, I never came to my coach and said, I want to be a captain, or I want to lead these guys, right? I felt like I always wanted to lead by example. If I'm doing something right, the other guys will pick it up and they'll repeat, right? If they think it's right, they'll do what I do. It doesn't really work that way. I think I was afraid of that commitment. I was afraid to fail, maybe, and I didn't have to do it, right? Nobody tells you, oh, you have to be a team captain. You have to put it on your resume. So for me, taking that extra, getting outside the comfort zone and taking that extra step to take on an additional leadership role. That's something I probably just have regrets about. I wish I did it. Again, maybe other teammates considered me a leader on the team and I didn't realize it. I didn't have a title per se, but I was trying my best to lead everyone by example. But that's something just, as I developed, right, as I went into the career, I had to become an extrovert. I had to learn how to work with others. And, but in that transition, I wish I would have done it a little bit more. Take that step, ask a question, raise a hand, take a leadership role. Even if you're not good for it, whoever is making that decision, they'll make a decision for you, whether you're ready for it or not. And if you're not ready, maybe they'll show you how to get ready for it, which will better you at the end.
Awesome. Thank you. And Joe, Sherrel, whoever wants to go next.
I can go next.
Okay.
All right. So I wanted to really think about this and to kind of sum it up, something that will be important to me. And the one thing I keep going back with is being comfortable with the unknown, right? So being comfortable with the unknown is a really big picture and it's broad, but when you think about it, it falls back into become comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Don't be afraid to fail. I think the sooner you can take that out of the equation, the sooner you'll be able to knock down your goals really fast. And what I've learned is it's okay if I fail, just learn from my mistakes and be able to move on and learn from them. but that also comes with being comfortable with the unknown, taking on a new job, taking on a new role, not having a job, but looking for one, not knowing what your career goals are going to be just yet, but still going after what you think would be great, right? I think nowadays, especially when I talk to a lot of individuals that are looking for jobs, that are most recent grads, they have an idea of what they want, or they say, well, I'm not really sure, but they're afraid to just go ahead and start doing, right? And I think it kind of goes back with what Max was saying before, right? He has an analyst, they'll crunch the numbers, but at some point you actually have to get out and do the job. So don't be afraid to just step in, don't be afraid of the unknowns, become comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think a lot of things will start to work in your favor.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
So I would say for me, I was quite studious. So a little wild card, I probably would have partied a little more. Like I probably would have went to like one party, like JJ and Carrie on, they probably would have dragged me one more time. But seriously, I think what I would have done differently was perhaps really soak in the moment of success, right? On the field. Like, so we were conference champions, did very well on the field. And during the time, you're just going through the motion, right? Like you're going to practice, you're lifting weights, and you're going through the motion. And even when you achieve success, whether it's, personally, right? Whether it is on a team level, in college, you're just kind of going through the motion. And so sometimes I sit back and think, wow, I had such a great time. Or wow, I didn't really cherish that moment like I should have. And so that would be my advice. Of course, work hard, continue to, continue to strive, but soak in those moments. And also, this is going to be kind of controversial too, is don't get wrapped up in the sports, because at the end of the day, sometimes employers don't even care that you're that you had a batting average or how many points you scored, right? Know that you're there for your education and know that you're there for the next chapter of your life. So don't take the games too hard sometimes, because just know there's another side to this life after sports.